Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we try to give you that intellectual shortcut, digging into figures who've really shaped our world.
And today, we're tackling someone truly massive, William Henry Gates III, Bill Gates.
Yeah, I mean, his life story, it's like three different epics rolled into one, isn't it? Trying to synthesize it all is, well, it's a challenge.
It really is. You've got the software revolutionary, the guy who basically defined the PC era.
Then there's the corporate architect,
Yeah.
building one of history's biggest monopolies.
And then the global philanthropist, committing, what is it now, over $100 billion to tackling these huge global problems. It's just staggering.
It is. So our mission today, yours and mine, is to get past the usual headlines. We want to understand the choices he made, the levers he pulled to get that kind of influence.
Right, and the scale we're talking about.
Yeah.
Youngest self-made billionaire at 31. That was 1987. Just think about that.
And holding that title, world's wealthiest person, for what, 18 of the 24 years between 95 and 2017?
Yeah, just dominated it. And even though he's stepped back from the day-to-day at Microsoft, that influence, that private power, it's still immense.
Still up there. As of like mid-2025, his net worth is hovering around $115 billion.
Yeah.
Still 13th richest globally.
So, yeah, we need to trace that path from that early competitive streak.
Right, all the way to the IBM deal, which was just pivotal.
Definitely. And then Microsoft's culture, the management style, the antitrust battles.
Yeah, those were huge. And then the massive shift, the pivot to philanthropy, global health, climate change.
Right down to things like his recent political donations, his land ownership. It's a huge canvas.
It really is. Okay, let's dive in. Where do we start? Seattle, 1955.
Exactly. William Henry Gates III, Trey, they call him, and the sources, they all point to one thing, that competitive fire. It started at home. It wasn't learned later.
Yeah, you read about his family. I mean, talk about high achievers. Father, a prominent lawyer, grandfather, a bank president.
And his mother, Mary Maxwell Gates, was incredibly influential. On the board of First Interstate Bank United Way, a major figure in Seattle.
And the home environment itself.
Yeah.
It sounds like everything was a competition. Playing cards, pickleball.
Even swimming to the dock. There were rewards for winning, penalties for losing. It was structured competition, ingrained from day one.
So that idea, win or lose, was just baked in.
Absolutely. It seems like it taught him this intense focus. If you're going to play, you play to win. Full stop.
His parents apparently wanted him to go into law, follow that traditional path.
Right. But he found, let's say, a different outlet for that intensity at Lakeside Prep School, around age 13.
And this is where the story gets that almost accidental twist involving the Mothers Club.
It's incredible, isn't it? They held a rummage sale, raised money.
And bought a teletype Model 33 terminal, hooked up to a GE mainframe somewhere.
And for young Gates, this machine was just perfect logic. He was apparently fascinated by how it executed code flawlessly every single time.
A stark contrast to, messy human interactions or the nuances of law his dad dealt with.
Precisely. And he just dove in, got obsessed. They even excused him from math class so he could program in BASIC.
Writing his first program? Tic-tac-toe. But that curiosity, it quickly turned into something else, didn't it? He wanted more computer time.
Always more. He and his friends, Paul Allen included, figured out how to exploit bugs in the system used by the Computer Center Corporation, the CCC.
Basically hacking the system to get free time.
Exactly. They got caught, got banned. But here's the crucial part.
The pivot. Right. Instead of just being banned.
They went back, formed the Lakeside Programmers Club, and made CCC an offer. We'll find the bugs in your software.
Like give us unlimited computer time? Brilliant, really.
Absolutely brilliant. Because that deal gave Gates access to study sophisticated source code, Fortran, Lisp, machine language. He got this deep systems-level understanding that most kids just didn't have.
So even before college, he's not just a coder. He's a systems thinker who knows how to leverage technical skill.
And that led to their first real venture, Trafo Data, with Paul Allen, building traffic counters using Intel 808 chips. Still teenagers.
It's just relentless application. Then comes Harvard, 1973. Scores almost perfect on the SATs. 1590 out of 1600.
Yeah, clearly brilliant academically. Met Steve Ballmer there, future Microsoft CEO. But even at Harvard, he wasn't just coding.
The pancake sorting algorithm. We have to talk about this for a second. It sounds obscure.
It is a bit, yeah. It's a problem in combinatorics, about sorting a stack of different sized pancakes with the minimum number of flips using a spatula.
Okay.
But the point is, his solution, worked out in a class, was so efficient it remained the best published solution for over 30 years.
Wow. So that tells you something about how his mind works, doesn't it? It's
Mhm.
not just software. It's abstract problem-solving, optimization, seeing
Yes,
patterns.
exactly. That same intensity, that drive to find the absolute optimal solution, you see it applied later to business, to strategy, even to global health problems. Pure analytical power.
But Harvard wasn't the end game. 1975 rolls around.
And the January issue of Popular Electronics hits the newsstands, featuring the Emites Altair 8800 microcomputer kit.
The spark.
That was it. Gates sees it, Allen sees it. They realize the hardware is finally here for personal computing, but it needs software. Desperately needs software.
So he takes what he later called an official leave of absence from Harvard.
Which, let's be honest, was never going to be temporary.
No. That decision leads directly to the birth of Microsoft.
And the way it started. It's pure audacity, that famous bluff.
Right. They see the Altair article and what they just call it mites.
They call Ed Roberts the president of ITES and tell him they have a basic interpreter ready for his machine.
Which they absolutely did not have.
Not even close. They didn't even have an Altair to test it on. They had to write an emulator first running on a Harvard computer, then write the basic interpreter itself.
All in a matter of weeks. The pressure must have been incredible.
Intense. But they pulled it off. Flew out to Albuquerque, demoed it. Roberts was impressed. Licensed Altair Basic on the spot.
And Microsoft was born. Dropped the hyphen pretty quickly. Incorporated in 76.
And almost immediately, Gates lays down the law about software value. That brings us to the open letter to hobbyists in February 76.
Yeah, this is fundamental to understanding him, isn't it? He basically takes on the entire hobbyist community that, in a way, nurtured him.
He does. He argues that people copying software without paying, which was totally common then, was basically theft.
He said it destroys the incentive for professionals to write good software.
Exactly. Developers need to be paid. Intellectual property, software IP, has value and must be protected. It wasn't just a belief. It was the cornerstone of the entire future business model. Software as a product, not a shared community resource.
That mindset directly leads to the moment that truly changed everything, the IBM deal, 1980.
This is it, the turning point, where technical skill meets unbelievable strategic and legal maneuvering.
So IBM, the giant, comes knocking. They need an operating system for their secret PC project.
And surprisingly, Gates initially points them elsewhere, to digital research, run by Gary Kildall, who had the dominant OS at the time, CP/M.
Why do that? Just being cautious? Or was it strategy?
Hard to say definitively. Maybe a bit of both. Maybe he felt Microsoft wasn't ready for IBM's scale yet. But whatever the reason, it worked out perfectly for him.
Because the talks between IBM and digital research fell apart
Right.
over NDAs and pricing or something.
Yeah, the story goes Kildall's wife, who handled the business side, was wary of IBM's terms. So IBM comes back to Gates. Can you provide an OS?
And at this time, he doesn't have one ready either, but he knows where to get one. No bluff needed.
Exactly. Pure execution. Microsoft goes to a small Seattle company, Seattle Computer Products.
Buys their existing OS, called 86 DOS, sometimes QDOS for quick and dirty operating system.
Right. For a reported $50,000, maybe $75,000, they quickly adapt it, polish it up a bit, and license it to IBM as PC-DOS.
Okay, but here's the absolute genius move, the part you really need to grasp. The licensing terms.
This is the billion-dollar decision. IBM gets the OS, yes, but for a relatively small one-time fee. Microsoft, crucially, retains the copyright. They own the software.
IBM didn't insist on owning it. That seems like a huge oversight from them.
A colossal oversight in retrospect. They were hardware guys. They probably didn't grasp the long-term strategic value of the operating system copyright. Gates absolutely did.
So when the IBM PC launches, it's a huge hit. And almost immediately, other companies start cloning it.
Compaq, Dell, Gateway. The clone market explodes. And because IBM didn't own the OS...
Every single one of those clone makers had to go to Microsoft to license the operating system,
Yeah.
now called MS-DOS.
Precisely. Microsoft basically put a toll booth on the road to the entire PC industry. That single decision, retaining the copyright, transformed them from a small player into the dominant force practically overnight. It was built on that legal detail.
That intensity, that control. It permeated the early company culture too, didn't it? You hear stories about him reviewing every line of code himself for years.
For the first 5 years, reportedly, yes. Absolute micromanagement, ensuring everything met his standard.
And as they grew, that translated into a, let's say, challenging management style.
Challenging is one word for it. Verbally combative, known for tearing into managers' ideas. famous for lines like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard."
Or the classic, why don't you just give up your options and join the Peace Corps?
Right. It was brutal, but some people say, if he really engaged with you, even aggressively, it meant he respected your intellect enough to argue. If he could pick apart your logic and you could defend it, you earned your place.
A high-pressure cooker, for sure.
Yeah,
Intellectually demanding, but maybe not great for morale.
probably not. And that intensity had other costs. Paul Allen's departure in 1983, that was complicated. He had Hodgkin's disease, needed treatment.
But there was also a serious dispute over his equity stake in Microsoft, right? It got pretty contentious.
It did. They did reconcile later, became huge philanthropic partners, donated massively back to Lakeside. But yeah, that early conflict shows the harder edge of Microsoft's ambition.
And the ambition just kept rolling. Windows launches in '85, taking on Apple's graphical interface. Microsoft just keeps growing, keeps dominating.
Leading up to the late 90s, the peak of their power, but also the peak of the conflict, the antitrust era.
Right. Massive lawsuits in the US, in Europe, the government essentially accusing Microsoft of being an illegal monopoly.
And the courts largely agreed. The core finding was about anti-competitive practices.
Specifically leveraging the Windows monopoly to kill off competitors, right?
Yeah.
Like Netscape Navigator.
Exactly. Bundling Internet Explorer with Windows for free, using their OS dominance to force out the leading browser. The courts ruled that was illegal monopolization, actively blocking competition.
And Gates's own performance during the legal proceedings, especially that 1998 deposition, it became infamous.
Oh, yeah. Widely seen as evasive, argumentative, quibbling over the meaning of basic words like compete.
Reports said the judge actually laughed at some of his responses. It was a PR disaster.
It really was. The image of the brilliant strategist suddenly looked like arrogance under pressure. That whole period, the late 90s, early 2000s, really marked a shift.
He starts stepping back, steps down as CEO in 2000, hands over to Ballmer, stays on as chief software architect for a while.
Then transitions away from day-to-day operations around 2006, becomes chairman.
Finally leaves the board entirely in 2020 to focus just on the Gates Foundation.
But even looking back at that era of total dominance, you know what he calls his greatest mistake?
It's not the antitrust stuff, is it?
No, it's losing the mobile OS war, letting Google's Android become the standard for non-Apple phones. He sees that as a massive strategic failure that cost Microsoft hundreds of billions.
Fascinating. Even with all that success, it's the missed mobile opportunity that stands out to him.
Which tells you something about his focus always on the next platform, the next strategic battleground.
Okay, so post-Microsoft, he doesn't just retire to an island, he pivots. Hard.
Completely. He steps into this role, almost like a global strategist or a philosopher king of technology and risk, focusing on huge long-term challenges.
And the things he started talking about, his biggest fears. They weren't market share or quarterly earnings anymore.
No, he was talking pandemics, nuclear war, bioterrorism, existential risks.
And he was talking about pandemics way before COVID-19, that 2014 speech.
Yeah, where he basically warned the world was completely unprepared for a major infectious disease outbreak. Said it could kill millions more than a war. He highlighted how vulnerable we were.
That foresight gave him enormous credibility when the pandemic actually hit, didn't it?
Absolutely. The foundation was already working in that space, and he'd been sounding the alarm. He also started talking more about AI risk, agreeing with people like Elon Musk that superintelligence is a serious long-term concern.
Asking why more people aren't worried about it.
Right. But the area where he's put maybe the most focused energy and investment, besides global health, is climate change and energy.
And his approach here is, well, it's very Bill Gates, isn't it? It's about optimization.
Totally. He believes policy changes are important, but not enough. We need breakthrough innovation. We need clean energy to be radically cheaper.
His goal, he said, is to make it a quarter as costly as fossil fuels. So cheap that developing countries just choose it automatically.
That's the ultimate optimization problem for him. How do you engineer that cost reduction?
Which led him to start Breakthrough Energy.
Right, this huge coalition of investors pouring money into really high-risk, potentially high-reward clean tech startups. Things like advanced batteries, green hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuel, even synthetic breast milk, oddly enough.
De-risking the R&D for technologies that might normally take decades to develop.
And pushing governments, too, with mission innovation, getting countries to commit to doubling their clean energy research budgets. He's orchestrating on a global scale.
A prime example is TerraPower, his own nuclear venture.
Yeah, focusing on advanced reactor designs. They're developing a sodium-cooled reactor, uses molten sodium, not water, for cooling. Supposedly safer, more efficient, can use different kinds of fuel.
And they're actually building one, right, in Wyoming.
That's the plan. A demonstration plant with Pacific Corp, a utility company, trying to bring advanced nuclear into the real world, potentially replacing coal plants. It's incredibly ambitious.
But his climate work isn't without major controversy. The geoengineering stuff, for instance.
Ah, yes. Funding research into sun dimming, the SCOPEX project at Harvard, looking into stratospheric controlled perturbation experiment.
Basically researching the idea of spraying aerosols high in the atmosphere to reflect sunlight and cool the planet.
It's hugely controversial. The potential for unintended consequences messing with rainfall patterns, ozone layer impacts is enormous. Plus, the governance issues. Who decides to do this?
But Gates is funding the research to understand if it's even feasible, what the risks are. It shows his willingness to look at extreme technological fixes.
Absolutely. Same with his push for rich nations to switch entirely to synthetic beef. A massive societal change, driven by his analysis of methane emissions from agriculture.
And he backs up these technical ideas with political action when needed, like lobbying Joe Manchin on the Inflation Reduction Act.
Right. He personally got involved, made the case to Manchin, and when it passed, Gates called it maybe the most important climate legislation ever in the U.S. He's willing to use his direct influence for policy outcomes.
Which brings us to the quieter engine behind a lot of this. His personal investment firm, Cascade Investment. This isn't the foundation. This is his private wealth.
And the scale here is also mind-boggling. Cascade manages the billions not given to the foundation yet, and its holdings are significant.
The most talked about holding. Farmland. He's the largest private owner of farmland in the United States.
Yeah, something like 242,000 acres across nearly 20 states. It's an astonishing amount.
What does that mean, practically, owning that much land?
It means huge influence over agriculture, land use, potentially food prices, adoption of farming technologies. It's a different kind of power, much less visible than the foundation's work.
And Cascade holds big stakes in regular companies, too, right?
Major positions, like 16% of AutoNation, the car retailer, largest single shareholder in Canadian National Railway key infrastructure, a big stake in Ecolab, which does water treatment and hygiene.
So, logistics, infrastructure, resources.
Exactly. Plus, they're still making venture bets in cutting-edge tech. Synthetic biology with Ginkgo Bioworks, AI chips with Luminous Computing.
And during the pandemic, Cascade actually bought Melologic, a UK company that made rapid COVID tests.
Which shows how his investment interests and his philanthropic goals can sometimes overlap or align, investing in the tools needed to solve the problems the foundation targets.
Okay, let's shift fully to the philanthropy, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The scale is just unprecedented for a private charity.
Totally. Around $60 billion given to the foundation itself, part of that $100 billion total commitment. It's the largest private foundation on Earth, by far.
And its influence on global health is immense. They modeled it after the Rockefeller Foundation, right?
Yeah, focusing on huge systemic problems that others maybe ignore or can't fund at scale, especially infectious diseases.
Their main targets are really specific. Polio eradication, malaria, tuberculosis.
Relentless focus. Massive funding for vaccine development, delivery systems, mosquito nets, diagnostics. Also funding things like golden rice, the genetically modified rice with vitamin A to fight malnutrition.
And the sanitation work, including that unforgettable moment with the Omni processor.
Ah, yes. Bill Gates drinking water that had been moments before human sewage sludge processed by this machine they funded.
A dramatic way to prove the technology works.
Definitely memorable. It highlights that engineering mindset. Find a technical fix for a massive problem like lack of clean water and sanitation. Plus, huge investments in family planning, access, and education.
Then there's the Giving Pledge, co-founded with Warren Buffett in 2010.
Getting billionaires to commit to giving away at least half their wealth. It's a public statement about the responsibility that comes with extreme wealth.
And it aligns with his own plans for inheritance, right? Leaving his kids relatively little.
Yeah, he's been clear. The vast majority, over 99%, will go to the foundation, not his children. They'll get maybe $10 million each, a tiny fraction of his fortune. He wants the money put to work solving problems.
When COVID hit, the foundation was positioned perfectly, given their work and his earlier warnings. They launched the COVID-19 Therapeutics Accelerator quickly.
He became a global spokesperson for preparedness, vaccine development, constantly saying, another pandemic will come, we have to be ready.
But the pandemic also threw that core tension in his career into sharp relief, didn't it? The IP issue.
The TRIPS our controversy.
Yeah.
Yes, this was huge.
Can you break that down? What was the waiver about?
Okay, so TRIPS is the WTO agreement on intellectual property. During the pandemic, countries like India and South Africa proposed waiving patent protections for COVID vaccines and treatments.
The idea being, let any country with a manufacturing capability make cheaper generic versions faster.
Exactly. Boost global supply, especially for poorer nations. But Gates opposed it.
Which seems counterintuitive, given his focus on global health access. Why?
His argument went right back to that 1976 open letter. He believes strong IP protection is essential to incentivize the massive R&D investment needed for breakthroughs like mRNA vaccines in the first place.
He argued the real bottleneck wasn't patents, but the difficulty of safely transferring complex manufacturing tech and ensuring quality control.
Right, but the criticism was fierce. People saw it as his fundamental belief in IP monopolies, the very thing that built Microsoft overriding urgent humanitarian needs during a global crisis.
It's the central paradox, isn't it? The engine of his wealth creation potentially hindering the distribution of life-saving tools he helped fund.
It really is a defining tension. Alongside the foundation, he also makes large personal donations, often putting his name on buildings at places like MIT and Stanford.
And uses his profile for specific fundraisers, like those tennis matches with Roger Federer for education in Africa.
Yeah, the Match for Africa events raised millions, so he leverages his fame and connections in multiple ways.
Let's talk about his public image. It's been a real roller coaster.
Oh, absolutely. He started as the ultimate tech villain for many in the 90s, the ruthless robber baron of software.
Then, post-Microsoft, post-Foundation launch, he undergoes this transformation, becomes the saintly savior, the techno-philanthropist everyone admired.
For about 2 decades, that image largely held. But then around 2021, coinciding with the divorce announcement, things shifted again quite dramatically.
Yeah, the narrative darkened. Suddenly, he's portrayed more like a tech supervillain again in some quarters. Scrutiny intensified massively.
And old controversies resurfaced alongside new ones. The antitrust findings from the 90s never went away, obviously. The courts did find Microsoft abused its monopoly power.
But the focus recently has been much more personal, especially the connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. Reporting, particularly from the New York Times, detailed meetings between Gates and Epstein starting around 2011, well after Epstein's initial conviction.
The reports said they met many times, and crucially, that Melinda French Gates had concerns about this relationship as far back as 2019, reportedly contributing to her decision to seek divorce lawyers then.
Gates himself has called meeting with Epstein a huge mistake. He said the goal was philanthropic fundraising, trying to connect Epstein's network to global health causes, but admitted it was naive and damaging. He expressed deep regret, especially for the impact on his family.
His political stances also add layers. He's generally advocated for higher taxes on the wealthy.
Which is always a bit ironic coming from one of the wealthiest people ever. But he's also taken direct action lately.
That huge donation in the 2024 election cycle.
Exactly. A reported $50 million donation to Future Forward USA Action, a group supporting Kamala Harris's presidential campaign.
And using a 501c4 structure, right, which allows for less disclosure than direct campaign contributions, often called dark money.
It allows for very large contributions focused on political advocacy. Gates justified it by saying he felt this election is different, implying the stakes were exceptionally high, warranting that level of personal financial intervention. It's a significant move, showing another way he wields influence.
And of course, during COVID, his high profile on vaccines made him a lightning rod for conspiracy theories.
Just wild stuff. Microchips in vaccines, depopulation plots, all completely unfounded.
He tends to dismiss them as people looking for simple, albeit sinister, explanations for complex events like a pandemic.
Which is probably true, but the sheer volume and reach of those theories were remarkable.
On the personal front, the divorce from Melinda was finalized in August 2021. They deliberately waited until their youngest child finished college.
And then there's that fascinating revelation from his upcoming memoir, Source Code, writing that he believes he's likely autistic.
Yeah, citing lifelong patterns, intense focus, pattern matching, difficulty with social cues, even physical stimming like rocking.
It offers a potential lens, doesn't it, for understanding that incredible, sometimes awkward intensity that drove both his business success and his very focused philanthropy.
It does add context. And his personal life seems to have moved on. He confirmed dating Paula Hurd in 2023.
and described her as a serious girlfriend more recently, saying he's moved past the divorce.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, synthesizing this life. It's quite a task.
It really is. You have the hyper-competitive software genius who built an empire on intellectual property control.
Then the transition to the concerned futurist, warning about pandemics, AI, climate change.
And finally, the hyper-focused philanthropist, applying that same analytical intensity to try and solve the world's biggest health and energy challenges. 3 careers in one.
He's received major honors, Presidential Medal of Freedom, honorary knighthood, Pakistan's second highest civilian award.
But the awards almost feel secondary to the sheer scale of his ongoing real-world influence. Which leads us, I think, to the final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, when you consider everything we've discussed, the foundation's agenda-setting power, the massive private investments like TerraPower and all that, farmland, the vaccine IP stance, the huge political donations.
It forces you to ask a fundamental question, right? How do we, as a society, navigate a future where so many critical global issues, public health strategy, energy policy, even democratic outcomes, are increasingly influenced, funded, and shaped by the specific priorities, technological bets, and personal decisions of a handful of unelected, ultra-wealthy individuals like Gates?
That concentration of power, originating from tech wealth, now steering responses to humanity's biggest threats. Something profound to think about.
Exactly. What does that concentration of private influence mean for all of us? That's the question we leave you with.